Hi everyone, my name is David Faro. I'm going to tell you about an elective course called Behavioral Economics in Action. I teach the course together with another faculty from the Econ department. I'm from the marketing department. His name is Professor Jean-Pierre Benoit. Let me start with a simple example of what the course is about. So here you can see a product. It's called Clocky. Maybe you heard of it, some of you might have seen it before. It's the alarm clock that runs around the room. You have to chase it so that you'll hopefully be awake by the time you catch it. You can snooze it, but it just keeps on moving around the room. This simple and maybe a slightly funny example illustrates a couple of important ideas from behavioral economics. The first idea is that people are sometimes biased, or they don't behave in a way that is very desirable, in a systematic way. For example, in this case, they may intend to get up on time every morning, but then they keep on snoozing the normal clock, and in the end, they end up late. And it might happen kind of repeatedly. This specific bias, or this kind of bias, is called time inconsistency. Why? Because you plan to do something at point 1 in time, and then every time the time comes to do it, you don't do it. For example, you plan and intend to get up on time, but every time, due to some other reasons from last night, you keep on being late. This is not a very serious illustration. The one with Clocky is not a very serious illustration of this bias. I mean, it can be important sometimes to get up on time, but there are much more serious manifestations of this kind of bias, where you intend to do something, plan to do it, but when the time comes, you don't do it. For example, you may not save enough for retirement, not eat healthy, not exercise, or not recycle, even if you actually plan to do those things. So that's one idea, one important idea from behavioral economics, which you can kind of see in this example, and we will cover in the course many examples of biases, the most important ones. The second idea that the Clocky example illustrates is how to help people avoid this kind of biases. Because it's nice to illustrate the bias or to identify it, but people may want some help or may need some help, or companies or public policymakers may want to help people to avoid some biases. In this case, in this specific case, people actually are aware of the bias. They know that they tend to get up late or keep on snoozing, so actually they invest money in a product which may even cause some hassle or inconvenience or even irritation. But nonetheless, because they know that they would fall prey to this bias, they're self-aware, they're willing to pre-commit. They almost tie their hands in advance in order to avoid this kind of behavior. This is not always the case. People are sometimes not aware of the biases, but sometimes they are, or sometimes they learn that they are falling prey to systematic biases, so they may engage in this kind of purchases, or the companies might implement some strategies or procedures to make people avoid those kind of biases. So those two ideas, biases and ways to avoid the biases, are two of the most important ones from this course. So behavioral economics is about understanding, predicting, and improving people's decisions and behaviors. So understanding the psychology, predicting when and why this would happen in a situation in which we can predict in advance, and then improve people's decisions by intervening. Usually, the decision and behavior has some kind of normative benchmark to which we compare it to. Normative benchmark, I mean something that we think is desirable. In this case, waking up on time, or saving enough, or not overestimating some number like your sales every time you have to estimate it. So there is a normative benchmark usually, and people tend to miss that normative benchmark in a systematic direction, always maybe in this direction. We can therefore identify a bias, understanding when and why it occurs, and because we understand when and why it occurs, we can try to intervene to change it or to improve it. We will look at very different kinds of decisions from very different kind of contexts. So I'm a marketing faculty and JP is an economic faculty, but the course is very general. It will look at consumers, For example, what may prevent them from buying products that would actually benefit them. We have a case, for instance, about snow throwers. It's a product in which they end up not buying and then regretting. So we're going to talk about the role of regret and how to avoid those kind of situations. We will also look at cases like consumers falling prey to gambling websites and apps. So consumers will be one big kind of area, but also more generally like citizens, how they use health services, for example, how to encourage them, make them come to medical appointments on time in NHS, for example. What makes individuals engage in good financial decisions like saving for retirement or investing. And finally, more like internal, more like employee and management decisions, like how to design incentives in a way that makes salespeople or teachers more motivated to perform. So these will be the kinds of cases we discuss, the kinds of examples and cases we discuss in the course. So it's a very general course. Our initial focus will be on identifying and understanding the biases, and our later focus will be on how to change and improve decisions. When it comes to changing and improving decisions, we're going to have two approaches. One is called debiasing. This is a way in which we understand the bias, when it occurs, why it occurs, and then we try to improve behavior. We try to fix people. We can teach them, we can give them information, we can warn them, we can design a procedure that avoids the bias. This is sometimes successful, but not always. You cannot always fix people. So instead, or in addition to that, there is another approach called nudges. Nudges are ways of structuring the environment in a way that nudges people do something in a way that is good for them. It doesn't try to fix people. So nudges, compared to debiasing, understands people's psychology and leverages that. For example, we might be cognitively lazy or tired or time pressured, and nudges take advantage of these tendencies to make us do good things for ourselves, like saving or exercising or buying products that are more healthy for us. The difference between nudges and debiasing is very important. We're going to cover both of them. Nudges use things like also the fact that we tend to follow others, like the herd, and uses social norms or smart defaults to make people do good things for themselves. Unfortunately, behavioral economics can also be used for bad causes. These are called sludges, in which companies can design the environment in a way that takes advantage of people's psychology to make them do things that are not so good for them. So we will also talk about the ethical aspects associated with behavioral economics. So the course has many cases and examples. I try to give some. It uses also students' own data to illustrate the concepts. In addition, and it's very important for us, you're going to have a chance to apply behavioral economics concepts and frameworks on a real-life problem with your group. So it has a lot of application. That's why the course is called Behavioral Economics in Action. The course is taught by myself. As I said, I've been here since 2006 in marketing department. JP also joined, I think, in the same time. And we're going to give you two different perspectives, but complementary on this interdisciplinary field. It is not a marketing course or an econ course. It's a general course for a very wide audience. We think it's useful for all kinds of students who want to understand and influence the decisions and behaviors of consumers, managers, and other stakeholders in business and NGO settings. We hope to see you in the course.